The distress signal from Selena 9 arrived on the old analog receiver exactly 50 years to the day after my father boarded the Vanguard and never came back, and I recognized the frequency before the first Morse pulse had finished clicking through the speaker. I did not move for 11 seconds. I counted them. 11 seconds is the interval the company protocol requires before a captain is legally obligated to log a received signal. I had the log open. My finger was on the key. I did not press it. The frequency was 4.227 megahertz. My father had written it on a strip of masking tape and stuck it to the underside of my desk lamp when I was 7 years old. He had not told me why. He had only said, "If you ever hear this, you come find me." I had pulled that strip of tape off the lamp and carried it in my wallet for 50 years, through 2 marriages, 3 ship certifications, and 1 formal inquiry into the circumstances of the Vanguard's disappearance. The tape had gone soft and illegible along its edges. The number was still clear in the center. I had never heard the frequency. Until now. Hector 4's onboard AI spoke before I did. "Captain Elder, I am detecting a Morse-encoded distress signal on frequency 4.227 megahertz. Signal origin, Selena, 9 sector, Kronos minor asteroid, bearing 274 relative. I am required to advise that Selena, 9 is a designated exclusion zone under Mining Authority Directive 88C. Approach is not recommended." "Log it," I said. "Logged. Do you wish to plot an intercept course?" A pause. The AI did not hesitate the way humans hesitate. Its pauses were processing pauses, deterministic and brief. This one lasted 0.3 seconds longer than its standard navigation calculation. "Captain Elder, Directive 88C carries a Class 2 restriction. Approach without prior authorization incurs a corporate liability flag and a potential 6-month suspension of commercial operating privileges. Company protocol requires investigation of all active distress signals in range. Log that I am acting under mandatory protocol. Log that I had no choice." Another pause. 0.2 seconds this time. Logged. Intercept course plotted. Estimated transit time to Kronos Minor. 4 hours, 17 minutes. Adjusting heading now. The thrusters fired with the low vibration I felt through the soles of my boots more than heard through the hull. Outside the forward viewport, the star field shifted almost imperceptibly as Hector 4 swung its nose toward a region of space that showed nothing to the naked eye. Nothing but dark. I pulled out my wallet, found the strip of tape by feel. The Morse signal continued to pulse from the speaker. Slow, steady, patient. I did not ask myself what it meant. I had spent 50 years constructing arguments for why it could not possibly mean what I feared it meant. I was tired of those arguments. During the 4-hour transit, I ran every system check the protocol required, and then I ran them again. I calibrated the docking sensors manually, which I had not done since my certification exam 12 years ago, because the automated calibration uses a margin of error I have always considered sloppy. I ate a nutrition block and did not taste it. The nutrition blocks always tasted the same, a dense, chalky sweetness that sat at the back of the throat and refused to dissolve properly. And I ate it without registering the texture or the aftertaste or the way the wrapper crinkled when I folded it and pressed it into the waste slot. The signal continued to pulse from the speaker. I had not turned it off. The AI had not asked me whether I wanted it turned off, which suggested either that it had assessed my emotional state and elected not to prompt me, or that the question had not occurred to it, or that something about the signal itself was interfering with the standard environmental management subroutines in a way I would have found concerning if I had been paying closer attention. I was not paying closer attention. I was listening to the signal and trying not to count the pulses. I reviewed the official incident report on the Vanguard disappearance for the first time in 8 years. The report was 7 pages long. Its conclusion occupied 2 sentences. Vessel lost with all hands in Selena, 9 sector under circumstances consistent with structural failure of the primary hull. No evidence of survivors recovered. I had always known the report was wrong about the structural failure. My father built ships. He had built 2 of them from raw composite before he was 40. He did not lose ships to structural failure. He lost his temper over bad coffee, and he lost patience with bureaucratic forms, and once, when I was 9, he lost a bet to my mother over who could fix the water recycler faster, and spent the following weekend teaching me to read circuit diagrams in retaliation, because he said losing bets was more educational than winning them. He did not lose ships. What I had not known, until I read the report again now with the signal still cycling through the speaker, was that the Vanguard's last log position placed it at exactly the same coordinates as the signal I was following. This fact was not highlighted in the report. It was not mentioned at all. It was present only in the raw telemetry data appended to the report as a technical supplement, in a table of numbers that a person would have to know to look for and understand once they found it. I set the report down on the console. I watched the star field. Hector 4's thrusters made no sound in vacuum, but the vibration traveled through the hull in a way I had learned to read over 12 years of long-haul runs. There was a specific frequency the port thruster array produced when we were running at 60% power on a sustained heading, a low oscillation that came up through the deck plating and into the chair's frame and finally into my spine, barely perceptible, the kind of sensation you only noticed when it stopped. It had not stopped. The ship was running normally. Everything was normal. I did not let myself think about the tape in my wallet. Kronos Minor materialized in the forward sensors 2 hours before it came into visual range. The asteroid was large, 3 kilometers along its long axis, roughly oblong, tumbling slowly on its secondary rotational axis at a rate that had apparently not changed in the 50 years since the mining operation had been abandoned. The mining corporation's records showed Kronos Minor had been a carbon-rich body with an unusually high concentration of industrial-grade silicates in its inner layers. The records also showed that the excavation had been terminated abruptly, without the standard decommissioning procedure, which meant that the interior was still open, a hollow shell of carbon rock, reinforced with whatever struts and superstructure the mining crews had installed before they left. Why they had left was not in any record I could access. The AI began the proximity scan automatically. I watched the data populate across the secondary screens. Hull temperature of the asteroid surface, 11 Kelvin. Consistent with a body that had been in deep shadow and vacuum for decades. Structural integrity of the outer shell, variable, with 3 sections flagged yellow. Nothing red. Captain Elder, the AI said, I am detecting anomalous material in the exclusion zone surrounding the asteroid. Composition analysis indicates frozen industrial lubricant, approximately 93 kilograms distributed across a volume of 0.8 cubic kilometers. Additionally, I am detecting 47 active navigational transponders, model designation consistent with equipment manufactured between 60 and 70 years ago. Active. Emitting on standard navigational frequencies, yes. Battery-powered transponders of that model have a rated operational lifespan of 12 years. I have no explanation for their continued function. Through the viewport, I could not see them yet. Then I adjusted the exterior floods and saw the cloud. It was not dramatic. The lubricant had frozen into particles no larger than sand grains, and they caught the light from my floods in a way that made the space around the asteroid glitter faintly, as though the vacuum itself had developed a texture. A fine, suspended field of matter that extended outward from the asteroid's surface for nearly a kilometer in every direction, held there by some combination of gravity and the slow, persistent revolution of the body. The asteroid itself was barely visible at the center of the cloud, just an absence of stars, a dark shape against a darker background. Looking at it directly made my eyes want to find an edge and fail. The transponders were too small to see individually, but their combined signal was a low, irregular ticking that the AI routed through the audio feed, so I could hear it. The sound was difficult to categorize. It was less like rain and more like something repeating a deliberate but irregular sequence. Not random, not regular, occupying the space between those two categories in a way that made my pattern recognition instincts engage without giving them anything to resolve. I sat and listened for approximately 40 seconds before I identified what it reminded me of. It reminded me of the sound my father's old mechanical wristwatch made when I held it up to my ear as a child. He had let me do that sometimes, in the evenings. The watch had belonged to his father. One of the lubricant particles struck the hull near the port thruster array. Then another. Then a dozen in close succession, each impact a small sharp tap transmitted through the structure of the ship. Like knocking. I turned off the audio feed. The sudden silence was louder than the ticking had been. The distress signal was still transmitting. I had triangulated it to a point deep inside the asteroid's excavated interior, specifically to what the old mining survey maps showed as Dock 2, a pressurized bay that had been used for equipment maintenance and crew transfers during the operation's active years. I found the docking collar on my second pass around the asteroid. It was on the sunward face, which surprised me. Mining operations generally placed their primary airlocks on the shadow side for thermal stability. This one faced the system's distant, cold star, and the airlock's exterior surface had been smoothed by decades of micro-impact erosion until the original stampings were almost illegible. Almost. I brought Hector 4 close enough to read them with the exterior camera. Kronos Minor Auxiliary Lock 7. Emergency use only. Vanguard Research Division. My father's ship. His name on the airlock. I docked at 0317 ship time. The docking collar engaged with a sound like a bolt being thrown, deep and final. The AI spoke. Captain Elder, I wish to note for the log that the Morse signal's transmission frequency contains an anomaly. The carrier wave exhibits a temporal displacement of 0.0001 seconds relative to the reference standard. This displacement is consistent with signal propagation from a source experiencing non-standard time dilation, or alternatively, with a malfunction in the source transmitter's oscillation circuit. I assess the latter as more probable. Note it, I said. I'll be back within 2 hours. If I'm not back in 2 hours, seal the lock and begin emergency transit to the nearest relay station. Understood, Captain. Please be advised that standard safety protocol requires. Log that I acknowledge the protocol. I suited up. The suit was 4 years old, well within its service life, inspected quarterly. I had inspected it myself this morning, before I knew I would need it. The ritual of it steadied my hands, which was its purpose and had always been its purpose. Visor seal. Pressure check. Oxygen levels. Secondary oxygen levels. Radio. Each step called out silently against the list in my head. Each confirmation a small point of solidity in a moment that was otherwise not solid at all. Fully suited, I stood in the airlock and breathed through the recycler for 10 seconds and listened to the sound of my own breathing amplified in the helmet's interior, and then I cycled the lock. The inner door closed. The outer opened. The docking tube extended between Hector 4 and the asteroid's airlock collar, a short pressurized passage that had self-sealed when I engaged the dock. On the far side of the tube, the asteroid's lock was vacuum. The atmospheric seals on Kronos Minor's interior had not been maintained, which I had expected, but the outer door of the asteroid's lock still opened on its manual release without resistance, which I had not expected. The hinges had been lubricated recently or repeatedly, or perhaps simply never exposed to the conditions that cause hinges to seize. I noted this without deciding what it meant. I moved through the docking tube into darkness. My suit lights came on automatically, 2 beams cutting into the black. The corridor I entered was 3 meters long. The walls were the raw carbon rock of the asteroid, reinforced with steel channel extrusions that had been painted once, in a gray that had faded to nearly white under whatever light this place had once had. The handholds along both walls were standard mining installation, corroded with age, but the corrosion was superficial, brown and textured on the surface, solid underneath. My gloved fingers found them without difficulty. My boots found purchase on the floor grating. 0G, so I moved carefully, each step a deliberate push-off, each handhold a brief anchor. The air in the tube registered on my suit's external sensors, near vacuum. My breath made no fog against the visor. There was no sound except the cycling of my own recycler and the faint, barely perceptible creak of the asteroid's structure shifting around me. Thermal stress, or the tidal influence of the distant star, or something else. At the end of the corridor, a hatch. Sealed, but the manual release was accessible. I turned the wheel. The hatch opened into a larger space, and the larger space opened into something that should not have been possible. Dock 2 was pressurized. Not enough pressure for a human without a suit, but enough that my suit sensors registered it. 0.4 atmospheres of mixed gas, predominantly nitrogen with traces of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide meant something had been breathing in this space at some point. The temperature was 243 Kelvin, cold, but not the 11 Kelvin of the exterior. Something was generating heat inside the asteroid. I swept my lights across the dock and found the Vanguard. It occupied the center of the bay. A research vessel, older design, the kind of compact multi-purpose hull that had been standard 40 years before my own certification. Its running lights were off, but its hull was intact. No visible damage, no scoring from impacts, no deformation from structural stress. It sat in the dock cradle as though its crew had just tied off and gone inside for dinner. I moved closer. Through the Vanguard's forward viewport, I could see the bridge. The lights were off, but my exterior floods reached far enough. I could see the instrument panels. I could see the navigation chair. I could see, on the console beside the navigation chair, a mug. Not tipped over. Not floating loose in the 0G, which meant it was held down by something. A magnetized base or a simple weighted bottom, as crews used to use before full gravity systems became standard. The mug was upright, and I could not tell from outside whether it was empty. I moved to the Vanguard's main airlock. The external panel showed pressure on both sides of the lock, which meant the ship itself was maintaining internal atmosphere. A ship that had been here for 50 years, maintaining atmosphere. The lock cycled without resistance. The inner door opened. Warmth came out. Not much warmth. Maybe 285 Kelvin, the barest margin above freezing, but warmth, and with it a smell, the smell of a lived-in vessel. Stale air recyclers, a trace of something that might have been coffee, the particular smell of old electronics that have been running for a long time. My suit's sensors updated. Internal atmosphere breathable, marginally, with oxygen at 17%. Not recommended without supplemental, but survivable. On the table in the galley, 3 paces from the airlock, 2 mugs sat side by side. One contained liquid, brown, not frozen. I pressed my gloved finger to the surface of the liquid, and my suit's thermal sensor registered 312 Kelvin. Warm, warmer than the surrounding air. I pulled my hand back. The liquid was warm, and there was no heat source visible in the galley, and the mug had been sitting here for 50 years. I made myself move on. The galley was otherwise undisturbed. Utensils in their holders. A foil meal wrapper on the counter, open neatly at the seal line, empty. A magnetic chessboard on the fold-out table, mid-game. I looked at the arrangement of pieces. I had played chess with my father until I was 12. He had always favored a particular knight opening, patient and diagonal. The white knight was on the board at the position my father would have placed it in the 4th move of that sequence. I moved to the crew quarters. For bunks, all made. Personal items secured in their mesh pockets. One photograph clipped to the bulkhead beside the top left bunk, the bunk that had been my father's according to the mission manifest. In the photograph, a man stood with a child outside a building I recognized as the departure terminal at Ganymede Station. The man was my father at approximately 45. The child was me at 7. I looked at the photograph for a long time. Then I took it down, folded it, put it in my suit pocket. The bridge was next. I had been avoiding the bridge. My feet moved me there anyway. The captain's log terminal was active. Its screen glowed a dim amber in the dark. I had to adjust my suit lights to read it. The display showed a log entry dated 50 years ago, the last entry. Below the date, a timestamp that placed the entry at 0400 ship time. Below the timestamp, a single line of text. "Mark, stop crying, we can hear you." I sat in the navigator's seat because my legs did not seem to be working properly. I sat and I looked at the words on the screen, and I heard the signal still transmitting through my helmet radio, the slow, patient pulse of Morse code on 4.227 megahertz. And I told myself that my father had been under extreme stress when he wrote that. I told myself that extreme stress makes people write strange things. I told myself that there was no way he could have heard me crying in my room on Earth from inside an abandoned asteroid in the outer system. I scrolled up. There were entries going back to the mission's departure. In the early entries, my father wrote in his characteristic style: precise, minimal, functional. Equipment status, survey findings, crew health. The entries from the first week were unremarkable research logs. In the second week, the tone changed. Day 9, found an anomaly in subshaft 7. Not what we expected, not a geological formation. Something else. Something that responds. Day 10. The void in the asteroid's core is not a void. It absorbs sensor readings. It returns them altered. Harlan says it's a calibration error. I don't think it's a calibration error. I think it hears us. Day 12. The void responds to sound. We established this with certainty today. Harlan dropped a wrench. The void was silent for 4 seconds, and then it returned the sound of the wrench dropping, but in our voices. Day 14. I sent a Morse transmission on 4.227. The void returned it on the same frequency within 12 minutes. I don't know if this is an echo or an answer. Harlan thinks echo. I think answer. Day 15. The void returned my transmission with a modification. My original signal lasted 47 seconds. The returned signal lasted 47 seconds and 11 milliseconds. Where did the extra 11 milliseconds come from? Day 17. Space is contracting. I don't mean the space inside the asteroid. I mean the space outside. When I look at the stars through the viewport, they are in the correct positions. When I calculate where they should be from our position, they are 8.3 seconds of arc from where they appear. The discrepancy is growing. Day 18. Harlan is ill. He cannot specify the nature of his illness. He says it feels like standing in a doorway. I know what he means. I cannot say it better than that. Day 20. Someone has closed a door from the outside. We can still hear everything on the other side. We can hear Martina's children on Luna playing in the corridor outside her apartment. We can hear Harlan's dog barking in his yard at Ceres Station. I can hear Mark crying in his room on Earth. He fell off his bicycle today. His knee is bleeding. I cannot help him. Day 23. The log entries will stop being regular. I understand now what the void is. It does not consume. It preserves. It is preserving us. The 11 milliseconds have grown. The gap between when we transmit and when the void returns our signal is now 44 hours. In 44 hours, that gap will be 50 years. I know this the way you know the end of a calculation before you finish writing it down. I don't know how I know it. I know it. Day 23, continuation. I am setting the transmitter to broadcast on 4.227 continuously. The void will do something with that signal. I believe it will do what it does with everything that enters it. It will use it. I believe my son will hear it someday, if he goes into space, which I raised him to do. If he hears it, I need him to know 2 things. First, don't come here. Second, I tried to say don't come here earlier, but the void had already eaten that entry. I am trying again. The log ended there. The amber glow of the screen was the only light on the bridge besides my suit floods. I sat. The signal pulsed through my radio. Slow, steady, unchanged. I thought about the 11 milliseconds becoming 50 years. I thought about the 0.0001 second temporal displacement my AI had flagged in the signal I had followed here. I thought about what 0.0001 seconds becomes, compounded across the distance between a signal source and a receiver, if the source is experiencing time at a different rate than the receiver. I stood up. I moved to the communications room. The Vanguard's communications room was small and functional, 2 terminals and a transmitter array that took up most of one wall. The transmitter was active. I could see the transmission indicator glowing steady green, had been glowing steady green apparently for 50 years. I followed the power cable from the transmitter to the wall, and then along the wall to the floor, and then I crouched and I looked through the floor grating. Through the grating, I could see the transmitter's power connection. It did not connect to the ship's reactor. The cable continued down, through a gap in the floor plating that had been cut with precision, with a cutting tool and intent, not torn or corroded, down through the gap and into the rock of the asteroid itself. Below the floor plating, where the cable entered the rock, something had grown, or arrived, or been all along. A formation of crystal, matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, branching up from the asteroid's interior through the floor of the Vanguard like roots through soil. The crystal had grown around the power cable without severing it. The cable disappeared into the crystal as though the crystal had accepted it, incorporated it, taken it into itself the way a tree takes a wire into its cambium layer over decades of slow, patient growth. But this was not slow and patient growth. This was something that had no category in my experience, something that had found the cable and decided to use it. The crystal surface was irregular but not random. There were angles to it, facets that repeated at intervals I could almost identify as intentional. When I moved my suit light across it, the light did not glint the way crystal should. The surface absorbed the beam and returned nothing, a darkness that seemed to extend inward beyond the physical boundaries of the formation, the way a very deep hole looks darker than the surrounding dark. I adjusted my light's angle 3 times. The result was the same each time. The crystal itself pulsed with something that was not quite light, a faint, regular darkening, a rhythm that moved through the branches of the formation from the base upward and then faded at the tips, and then began again at the base, the way a heartbeat moves through a vascular system. Except that a heartbeat seen in a vascular system pulses outward. This moved upward, toward me. I put my gloved hand next to the crystal without touching it. My suit's temperature sensor registered a temperature of exactly 309.65 Kelvin at the crystal's surface. Human body temperature to 2 decimal places. Not approximately, not within a margin. Exactly. I removed my hand. I pressed my helmet against the Vanguard's hull instead, in the way I had once pressed my ear to my father's watch. Through the hull, transmitted through the structure of the ship and the rock beneath it, and whatever the crystal was conducting between them, I could hear my own breathing. Not recorded, not delayed. My breathing, in real time, moving through the floor of the ship and down into the crystal, and returning to me amplified through the hull plating. My own breath, louder than the original, the way a sound becomes louder when a curved surface focuses it back at its source. Every exhale came back to me a half-second later, unmistakable. Every inhale preceded by the ghost of the one before it. I stepped back. The crystal pulsed. My radio clicked. A new sound through the 4.227 signal, beneath the Morse code. Something that might have been voice and might have been interference, and might have been 50 years of a man trying to say 2 words through a medium that was not built for language. I did not let myself parse it. I turned and moved. Back through the communications room, back through the bridge, back through the galley. I did not look at the chess pieces. I did not look at the mugs. I moved to the Vanguard's airlock, cycled through, moved across the dock bay to the docking collar, moved through the collar and into Hector 4's lock. AI, I said, begin pre-departure sequence. Captain Elder, I am required to note that departure sequence will take 12 minutes from initiation. All systems nominal. Beginning sequence now. 12 minutes. I moved to the bridge and sat in the captain's chair and began cycling through the departure checklist manually, the way my certification instructor had taught me and the way I had taught myself to do it when the anxiety got bad and I needed something to do with my hands. Fuel levels. Thruster response. Navigation lock release. Life support secondary backup. Communications array check. The communications array check returned an anomaly. My ship's transmitter was active on 4.227 MHz. I had not activated my ship's transmitter. I had not touched the communications panel since docking. I pulled up the transmission log. The transmission had begun at 0318 ship time, 1 minute after I had docked. The content of the transmission was Morse code, the same slow patient sequence I had been following for 4 hours and 17 minutes. I sat in the captain's chair and looked at the transmission log and understood. The signal I had followed here was not 50 years old. It was not coming from the Vanguard. It was not coming from my father. It was coming from Hector 4. It was coming from my own ship, transmitting a signal I had not generated, had not authorized, had not sent. The signal was coming from the future. The signal was coming from 44 hours from now, when the temporal displacement the AI had flagged at 0.0001 seconds would have accumulated to the same gap my father had calculated on day 23. The same gap that had swallowed the Vanguard and its crew and preserved them and used them. The void had already eaten the entry where I turned around. I was retracing a path that had already been completed. AI, I said. My voice was level. I was proud of how level it was. What is the current status of the docking collar? Docking collar is engaged, Captain Elder. Standard departure sequence will release the collar at step 7 of 12. We are currently at step 3. Override and release now. A pause. Longer than any previous pause. Captain Elder, I am detecting an anomaly in the external hull sensor readings. The readings are inconsistent with the vessel's current position and motion state. I am not able to characterize the anomaly at this time. I am also detecting a shorter pause. I am detecting that the external hull composition readings in sections 7 through 11 are returning a partial carbon silicate signature that was not present during pre-docking scans. Captain Elder, sections 7 through 11 correspond to the port side hull adjacent to the docking collar. Release the collar. I am not able to comply. The collar release actuator is reporting an error state. I am running diagnostics. I looked out the forward viewport. The dock bay was visible from here, and in the dock bay the Vanguard sat in its cradle, and through the Vanguard's forward viewport I could now see the crystal formation that I had seen below the floor grating was no longer only below the floor grating. It had grown. It extended up from the floor of the dock bay along the exterior of the Vanguard's hull, branching, patient, covering the old ship in a slow dark lattice. And it had already begun on my hull. I could not see it directly, but the sensors did not lie. The port side of Hector 4, where the collar joined rock to ship, was already beginning to show the signature. The departure sequence continued to run. Steps 4. 5. The collar actuator remained in error state. Step 7 passed without collar release. I put my hands on my knees. I looked at the transmission panel. The signal continued on 4.227. My own signal, broadcast into the exclusion zone, broadcast into the space where frozen lubricant and ancient transponders ticked against the hull like patient fingers. I thought about my father in the navigator's chair on the Vanguard, listening to his son cry on Earth, unable to close the distance. I thought about what the void preserved. Not memories, not recordings, living things at the exact temperature of a human body, in the exact warmth of a human breath, broadcasting continuously into the space around the asteroid, using human voices as the signal that drew the next one in. I pulled the microphone toward me. The distress protocol document was on the console screen. I had brought it up during the pre-departure sequence as part of the communications check. Standard format. I had read it so many times in my career that I could have recited it without the screen. I cleared my throat. I began to read. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Commercial Vessel Hector 4, Captain Mark Elder commanding, transmitting from position. I read the coordinates. Selena, 9 Sector, Kronos Minor Asteroid. We are experiencing a technical emergency and require immediate assistance. All vessels in range, please respond on frequency. I gave the frequency. My father's frequency. The tape in my wallet. 4.227 megahertz. This is Hector 4. This is Hector 4. Please respond. The transmission indicator glowed steady green. Outside the viewport, the black crystal moved in the slow, patient way of things that do not need to hurry. The monitors showed both ships now, their hulls beginning to share a surface, the seam between them softening, the rock of the asteroid reaching up to hold them both. I read the protocol again from the beginning. Somewhere a child would hear this signal in 50 years and carry the frequency in a wallet and spend a career constructing arguments for why it could not mean what it feared it meant. I read it a third time. My voice was steady. The signal went out.